Welcome to the virtual lunch. Today is Thursday, June 18th. This is virtual lunch number 69. I'm honored that Paula Edgar is joining us.
I'm in Brooklyn, New York. I am an attorney by training, but I have not practiced for a very long time. When I did practice, I did bias and anti-discrimination law for the city of New York, and quickly decided that practicing law was not what I wanted to do. I wanted to interact with lawyers and to help them help themselves and to help others. And, as lawyers, we are helpers. That meant for me doing professional development and always having the sort of connection with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Having worked at 3 different law schools in both career services and diversity roles, I am used to mentoring and giving back with the pipeline and continue to lead lawyers. I was a committee chair for the New York City Bar Association and for the State Bar Association of New York. I am a member of 5 different bar associations, and I'm the immediate past president of the Metropolitan Black Bar Association, which is the largest bar association for Black attorneys in New York State. Also, the multiple award-winning bar association for the National Bar. We have won the Affiliate of the Year award for the last 4 years in a row, and I take full credit for that. So anyway, prior to me joining with my partner to form Inclusion Strategy Solutions, I did diversity consulting on my own under PGE LLC, and I still sort of do some consulting using that vehicle primarily for keynote speeches. With Inclusion Strategy Solutions, the work that we do is we advance diversity, equity, inclusion within organizations. And that can mean a lot of different things depending on the organization. We don't solely work with lawyers or law firms, but a lot of the work that we do is with attorneys, given my background. My partner is not a lawyer, but she has over 30 years of EEO training and doing diversity and inclusion work. We help people do the work that they do better. And so while we all think about diversity and we probably immediately think of race or gender, diversity is all of those things. The things that are visible to us are the ones that we tend to spotlight first. I can't today say to you that I'm only coming to you in my capacity as a woman. I'm always going to be a Black woman. I always sit at that intersection, and really helping people to understand that the power of people is that we are different, and to figure out all the places in which we can align and to help each other be better, interacting, making mistakes, getting over those mistakes, and getting to whatever our mission is within our organizations or individually is the work that we do. The beginning conversation is we all are biased, both in terms of our conscious biases and our unconscious biases. We all have bias. And as such, it will elicit and come out in different ways. And that can have a detrimental effect on our interactions. And we should talk about that. And that's a good baseline place of getting into an organization to start those conversations. We're not good at this, although we should be good at this, right? Our job is to issue spot, figure out responses to things, right? And do that. But we don't do that when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion as a collective. We tend not to speak about it, or we only talk about it in terms of the law. It's learning to have difficult and challenging conversations. It's learning to be able to say something, get it wrong, be told that you got it wrong, hold yourself accountable, apologize, and do better. It's helpful when the leader of the organization says, we need to do better. We want to prioritize this now, and we're going to back our words with action, because that's the nature of leadership, right? We hear you, we are inspired by you, we're going to hold you accountable, and then we're going to do the work. But often it is others who are individual contributors or at lower management levels who are saying, why aren't we doing anything? What's going on here? And no matter what, if that is brought to the attention of leadership, then something must happen. My recommendation for every organization should engage someone else to help. And for some reason, in a lot of organizations, they're like, well, this is diversity, so I can do this. I took that one class in college about anthropology, and I know people, so I can have this conversation. And having difficult conversations is a skill. And so to have someone to say, look, this is who we're going to have help guide our conversations. We're going to look to these people or this person as an expert is better, because it takes away some of the pressure and also gives you a partner in the process too, to do it well. So March happened. I had to be home with my children, who I love very much. I also had to be home with my husband. 2.5 weeks after that, my mother-in-law got COVID-19. 2 of my aunts passed away from COVID-19. And then my cousin passed away from COVID-19. So again, we know that communities of color have been detrimentally affected by COVID-19, right? And then, so look at what happened just in my life. I'm still having to homeschool. I'm still having to work and have these conversations. And then George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, right? So now I'm like, it's compounded my experience literally as a Black person in this country was to be detrimentally affected by COVID-19, to be having to think about having to parent my 2 Black children in this home, then having to deal with these deaths and what has happened community-wise. Right now, I don't know if you can hear it, but there are helicopters over my home because there are protests happening. So that's my experience. I'm a microcosm of what's happening. And then we say to people, hey, you okay? When anybody says to me, I'm okay, I'm like, how can I be okay? Right? Okay is not the standard we're in. But when someone says to me, I know this must be hard, I wanted to check in, it feels like I'm being loved. It's about people are saying, well, I don't know what to say to my Black colleagues. Say I care. Say I know this must be hard. Say, is there anything that I can do? Taking it away from Black people, nobody's okay. All of that goes into diversity and inclusion. So anybody who's not talking about how to manage D&I within their organizations right now is not listening to the crowd, right? And then when you talk about looting or riots, and you're not talking about the catalysts to these things, the 8 minutes and 46 seconds in which a man's knee was on someone's neck, the lack of justice in terms of a woman being killed in her home, in her bed, of someone going for a jog, which often many of you do. You cannot have these conversations without talking about the catalyst. And you can't start by saying, I don't like looting, if you're not talking about racism and generally why everyone is out in the street right now in the middle of a global pandemic. Think about how bad it has to be for us to know that you literally could die from a disease and you're still out in the street protesting because of these inequities, because of what is happening in our country. Another statement that was made essentially said, we believe Black Lives Matter. We have not gotten this right. We are going to do this better as we go forward, and we want your feedback. Clap, 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 because we're not saying we are angels at this. We're saying we are at a place right now where we recognize that we have not been doing this right. The way that you apologize for past actions is you understand that you have not done well, you acknowledge, you reflect, you atone, you hold yourself accountable, and you do better. It can't be empty gestures. It has to be thoughtful and longstanding and a part of who you are, encouraging you to be responsive, but not just responsive. Every school needs to say, this is an important part of our curriculum. There's a collective of the law school deans who are putting together an initiative where they are saying, here's your anti-racist toolkit. Here is information you need to read. Here are things that you need to do. And we're going to continue to add to these resources and continue to prioritize this. Many, many students of color and women experience bias in law school. We have to hold people accountable about the work and things that they do. There's lots of professors who are tenured, who have been teaching the same content in the same way for as long as they've been doing this. And it's time for them to start thinking about the ways in which diversity and inclusion impacts the law that they're teaching. Everything has to be done with this lens. And it's not a heavy burden. It really is just thinking about where are the places in which folks are going to be asking questions? Where are the places in which we need to think about this differently? And there's so many. And to allow for conversation and dialogue around it and not to be scared of that. Law schools need to teach students how to manage. You send them out into the world and you're like, hey, hope you get this people thing right. Make it a great day. And then they don't. Growth begins where comfort ends. And if you want to grow, you have to get uncomfortable. And this is uncomfortable stuff, but we will be better for it. If you can teach your children that you learned XYZ thing, then you are handing them that information. If you can talk to a colleague, right? We need to be catalysts for good and for more information. And the problem is when people start to say that Black Lives Matter or thinking about diversity is tokenism or it is politics, it's not. I recommend a few books. White Fragility by Dr. Robin DiAngelo's great book. How to be an Anti-Racist by Ibrahim X is fabulous. Those are great places to start. An expert means I'm continuing to learn and advance my expertise. And that should be what it means for all of you. That's what professional development is. Think about the fire. If you don't put it out, Ari's house is going to be on fire too. We're interconnected. Conversations now need to be about allyship, action, accountability, awareness, and accomplice is 5. Go from being an ally to an accomplice. Be right in there with me. You have bad apples, and then you have the other apples who are like, that's a bad apple. It's silence. The lack of action cannot say the value of a human life is not important. Every single name that becomes a hashtag was somebody's child. We can't devalue each other. We have to know that each of us is important and we have our space in this world and we collectively have to do this better.
Paula Edgar, everybody. All right. Well done. Thank you. Thank you so very much.